Okay, team, day 4. Well done and extra well done if you're listening to this and following along as it's being released, because that means you're listening to this on Christmas Day. How do you know if you really want what you're going after? Well, this is what you've got to know. Start to give yourself some really good feedback that you're actually committing to this process and you've managed to find time on Christmas Day. Now, that's not to be said that if you're catching up and you're doing it later, that there's not any less. We have to give credit where it's due, as well as if you've managed to fit this in it on any other day, give yourself some credit because this is going to make a difference. Okay, so today we're going to talk about mastery between me and Ray. And it's, from my point of view, it's just about how you assess who you listen to and where we can give ourselves a bit more confidence that we've got. Okay, so critical thinking is really important. How we make sure that we're not just taking on any information because someone in a position of authority has said it, including us in this podcast, and listen to what we say. Okay, so these are going to help give you some underlying layers to ensure that you know what things you're going to assess and where you can reflect upon as you go forward into 2025 on the journey that you're on. All right, enjoy the episode. Welcome back to the Identity Human podcast with your hosts, Don and
Ray.
How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I'm super excited to be recording these episodes. They excite me.
You are fantastic. Right. But okay, so we get straight into it. Obviously, this is the 12 days of Christmas, so we want to make sure that we're getting you guys as much value. You're going to be spending time with family, so you've snuck this on when you should be doing something else. Maybe you've got some headphones on, or you're just in this little short trip in the car, or you're running, or you're doing exercise, and you've gone, let's listen to Don and Ray talking. So we're going to give you as much value as possible.
Yeah, exciting.
Essentially, the next 4 episodes are going to be around mastery, how you create mastery within yourself, or how you notice mastery within someone else.
And how you, in your life, if you want to develop mastery of a certain topic or skill, how can you make sure that that mastery becomes fully ingrained and that you move through all the levels?
Also, I think it may help with those of you that are lacking confidence in something that you really do know. Right, we're going to be covering off mastery and how we decide, are we masters of something? How we decide, is someone else a master of something? So you can start to analyze things and not just brush people off because they come across wrong.
And if you're frustrated about where you're at because you're just, say, reading tons of books and say, I should really have mastered this topic by now, maybe you're missing the other pieces to help you to identify where you maybe are stuck in getting true mastery of something.
Yeah, because we can often look at other people and go, they know more than I do.
Yes.
Okay, so the first is going to be cognitive mastery. The second is going to be emotional mastery. The third is going to be physical mastery. But the one that doesn't really get looped in there is reflection, because all of it is very good and very well. And you'll see especially when we talk about emotional mastery, it means nothing unless you've reflected on it, which I can give some personal anecdotes as to why I understand that and why hearing these 3 principles has really helped me. So today's episode.
Yeah, the next 3 episodes plus this one are going to cover those points. And today is all around
cognitive. You're going to say knowledge mastery.
I was going to say knowledge.
Which is the same, but it's good to be able to say it in different ways. Cognitive mastery basically means the things that you know in theory, like you've just got a degree and you've never actually done it. You've read some books and you've never actually experienced it.
So that's a great example. It's like someone goes to university, studies for 3 or 4 years. They have like top level cognitive mastery. They have the knowledge, but they're missing both the practical and there's an emotional element to every sort of job we do.
Yeah.
So just
don't jump ahead to that though, because it'll
so
really
we're not.
So let's specifically talk about the 2 main principles within cognitive mastery we're going to cover today. Is you don't know what you don't know, and read books that you don't agree with,
or any books,
that don't
videos,
confirm your bias, or consume knowledge. So why is it important that we actually talk about this? And for me, I've seen too many people post, stop reading so many books, they're not going to help. And I get really frustrated because we always seem to argue one or the other. So stop reading so many books, it doesn't help. So what should I go do then? Just go and act, go and do things. But then you go and do things and you fail miserably, or you succeed, but you don't really know why you succeed. And for me, it's about how do we find this Aristotle's mean, which is that sweet spot right in the middle of I'm reading books, but I'm also taking action and I'm also reflecting, I'm also doing these other things. So I'm not sitting here saying you need to read 15 books before you go and do anything. I'm sitting here saying read a total of 15 books, but as you read them, act on them, do things within them, and actually test how they play out.
But on the note of gathering that knowledge, any tips for people on how to, when they're going, and because we're going to be talking about the taking the action in the next episode, but so in terms of gathering that knowledge, like we had a good tip here around making sure that you don't always read stuff that you agree with or consume knowledge that you agree with. Did you want to kind of
yes
that out?
So let's bring personalities into this a little bit. Let's just say that you're less of a logical analytical person, you're more of a dreamer. For example, you're more imaginative, you think way bigger picture, so you're going to look to things that reinforce that when you read a book. Let's say,
or like me, because I'm quite like, I don't know how you would describe like analytical. For years, I read so many books, but they all fell into one category. They were very like businessy, very like, this is how you create systems, processes. So I was focused so much on that side of my growth and developing the business that I didn't actually work on the softer skills in business. I didn't look for knowledge or seek books or seek podcasts and develop that part of me.
Yeah. I've just noticed our mics are not on. Hi guys, sorry to disturb the flow of the conversation, but I suppose it had come at a point where I realized that the microphones that we had on our shirts weren't working. And if you notice any of the audio being a bit funny in this episode, it's because my technical knowledge, sometimes I've got to learn things, and we were recording with one mic instead of twos, and. Anyway, I'm just going to interrupt for the usual bits of, if you haven't signed up and you've been listening to this, go to www.identityhuman.com and sign up for the challenge. Remember, this is what these 12 episodes are for. And if you haven't listened to any, then just go to that challenge. You've got nothing to lose. It's free, and it's going to give you some massive insights, some massive actions that you can take over just a 5-day period to fit into the busiest of times that you have. Okay, back to the episode. And what you just said was actually the same for me. How many times did you recommend a book for me that I just didn't read?
Don's business journey, he just kind of lent into what he naturally enjoyed, which was all the like psychology,
like Zig Ziglar, Thinking Big, Think and
I was like,
Rich.
You really need to try out some of these like Traction and these books that give you amazing like frameworks and structures for business. And it's so funny how like it took us like a good year before we swapped over and started consuming the others.
Yeah, and I think, but I also feel like you need to have explored the concepts of what feeds your soul before you add to it.
Yeah.
So if I'd gone straight into reading books, I would have just been like, what a load of nonsense. Like, this doesn't apply to me. I know that there's some books I want to go and reread, but they don't feed my soul. And I know that yours be similar, but I actually feel like on the other end, once you've got all your business understanding, when you've switched into reading other books, they've actually enlightened you so much and given you a much better understanding. And when you can start to see the crossover, you actually have a deeper understanding of why it's not just about, your business processes, even though it is, but it's not, because there's a human element in there that you have to consider too. So, you've done a lot of work on personality types, even within your own business, because that's my thing. And that's really helped you navigate the ebbs and flows that come with, and your current staff. Like they'll work themselves to the bone. I actually said this yesterday, is when you're in a leadership position, it's actually quite frightening, because if you're a good leader, you get people to do things that go above and beyond what they would necessarily normally do, especially when they're inspired. And that's a responsibility. But I don't want to go too far off the beaten track. Let's stick to, why should you read books that you don't agree with? Is because they're going to...
You don't know what you don't know.
Yes, and so there's a bias. No, well, I don't think it relates.
You don't see those as related.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know means that you'll be reading a book and you don't know it confirms your bias.
Okay.
So you're just reading to get more knowledge. Like, for example, you've got that, if I want to read books about trauma, because I don't know about it, when I read it, I'm going to be learning things I didn't know. There's no bias for or against it.
Okay.
Whereas if you said to me, Don, you need to read a book about economics, I would have economics doesn't exist, but I'm going to read that because it's going to be against my bias and it'll tell me things I didn't necessarily see.
Okay.
I'll also be learning, I suppose this is where you do see it, is like, I'll also be learning things that I didn't know before.
Yes.
There could also be an example of, I know a lot about, say, nutrition, and you say, Don, read a vegan book. So there's like, I do know, I'm still going to learn. You're always going to learn
For
something.
the background, Don is, I want to say it sounds extreme, but anti-vegan. So he's giving an example there by saying if he reads a vegan book, he is going to maybe, and this is a perfect example, if he is like anti-vegan, which I would say he is quite.
Well,
not
can
openly.
we nuance that?
Look, he's trying to really defend
because
himself.
I think it's important.
Because he doesn't want to openly be
Let
that.
me explain.
But I think if you read a vegan book,
because that's quite extreme.
It would give you insight into some of the logic of why they say it's optimal.
Yes. So I am anti-vegan, as in I wouldn't do it.
Yes.
But if you were vegan, I would be, okay, I get it. Because anything that helps you clean up your diet is going to help you clean up things.
Yes.
But as long as you know that, the same way that I'm probably pro, say, banting or fasting, but there are also things that you need to know that are against that.
Yeah, but it was just an example of how, I know you don't want anyone listening to this episode who's vegan to take offense. That's not the point. The point is we're just trying to say, because you're not, like you said, you're not anti-vegan. It's just, it doesn't suit your body.
Yeah. I get why there's a use for it, but I wouldn't put my kids
But
on
it's a good example of, I'm not saying go read a whole book on veganism, but be open to like hearing a 20-minute podcast on it or something.
So there's the real life nuance. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Is in 2 years ago, I would not have gone anywhere near even watching vegan, or I would have just been like, nah, it's terrible.
Nonsense, yeah.
Whereas because I've kind of got in the back of my head, don't just go down the path that I've actually followed a few people that advocate for things opposite to what I have. And I've learned a lot. I really have learned a lot, especially from the scientific point of view, where people are saying seed oils, they're pro seed oils. They are pro the things that I'm genuinely very anti. And it doesn't mean I now go, I'm going to eat all this palm oil and sunflower oil, but it just means I don't freak out as much, or I go, okay, there is a bit of nuance, there's a bit of context that is needed, which I wouldn't have seen before. And I think that that's important. So read books you don't agree with, because they're going to give you a point of view of personalities around you that would read those books because they agree with them. Yes. And if you want to have proper discussions, if you want to gain true mastery isn't about reinforcing the things you know. It's about knowing the duality of what you know, which means it's knowing the downsides to your upsides and knowing the upsides to your downsides. So you really do have to, if you don't believe in imagination, read imaginative books. And read a philosopher's book and see what he says about it, and then read a realist book or an
Because you'll never truly know where you are on the scale of something if you don't know the extremes.
I like that.
Like politics, you got far left, far right, and there's a whole debate of what was in the middle is now actually considered far right, and that's shifted. But not going down that rabbit hole. The key point is if you can understand the full spectrum or scale, it can help you to really know where you are and where you want to be so that you can work towards that. And like I said, even just coming back to business, just really having a clear idea of there may be such a big missing puzzle piece in your knowledge that is filled by an approach to that topic that you've never considered before. So in terms of cognitive mastery, because I'm just aware of the time, we want to keep these to under 15 minutes. I thought of a really cool challenge, because we like to give a little challenge to you at the end of each of these episodes. And our challenge to you for this episode, and I'm sure Don will be to take 10, 15 minutes today, because you probably don't have time for a whole book, to go and a topic that that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, that you maybe already feel like you have a lot of mastery, go and find a podcast that talks a point that you disagree with, talks to the opposite of what you currently understand. Listen to a 10 or 15 minute podcast and see what you take away from it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I like that. I really like that. And I'm thinking perhaps I'll make a quick Loom video link to a book list that I've got and put it in the show notes.
Oh, that'd be great.
And click on it and go and look at some of the books that we've read. And if you have suggestions, it would be amazing to see some of your suggestions in it, because then that's challenging us back, because obviously we are talking about reading books. And yeah, we were open to being able to bring as much of a holistic, well-balanced point of view in our approach rather than the extremes. So
awesome.
Thank you very much for listening. That is under our 15 minutes. Remember, we will sign this off as often as possible the same way. Ubuntu, we are who we are through others. So I'll work on me for you if you work on you for me.
You almost forgot it there.
No, I didn't. I was looking at the different camera.
Okay.
Right. Cheers, everyone.